And welcome, folks, to another edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider. It is that time where visitors start to make their way to campus, big names start to show up, and we get a chance to kind of get a feel for this new staff. This new staff that is going to be headed up by a new personnel department. Dave Peloquin filling out his staff, and we'll talk a little bit about that, about how he's going about it, what he's looking for. We'll break that down for you. And then we'll get into some of these football prospects, a few of them slated to be on campus here in the coming weeks. And then a loaded basketball weekend for the season finale for the Michigan men's basketball team, the best team in the country, in my opinion. And they're going to go out with an absolute banger of a contest against Michigan State on Sunday. And you're going to have a star-studded list of recruits on hand to take it all in. Joining me to talk about all of that, it's the best crew in the land. Starting off first with Brice Marich. Brice, how are you?
Solid. I wish you were around. He missed Alan True farewell tour, but
yeah, that's my guy. He's soaking it all in, all the adulation, all the love. Yeah, that's my guy. Gonna miss him on 24/7, but only in that capacity. Yeah, that's my man. That's my brother away from the business. So we'll still be hanging out and seeing what's up. So, I don't look at him as a it's not the same over there.
It's not enemy. Right. No. He's still the guy.
Can never be an enemy, Alan True. But anyway, Steve, how you doing?
Good. Yeah, no, we gave Alan his flowers last week. Like you said, though, never will be like an adversary. Same probably basically goes for Brandon Huffman, who also departed as well. I don't look at those guys like that. Those guys are great at what they do. Going to miss them on the network. We're really going to miss them on the network. So yeah, but last week's episode was good. It was good to get Alan on, but now it's almost here. Spring visits are about to take place and things are about to heat up a little bit.
Yeah, I got to shout out Huff too. That's another one of my guys. The times we've been out, hung out away from covering recruiting. Those are brothers forever. When you got relationships like that, it doesn't change when they go to another network. So at any rate, but my brothers here, that's what counts the most. My guys here, the family at TMI, breaking down Michigan for you. And so Dave Peloquin, guys, Michigan's new general manager, obviously he was at Notre Dame forever, goes on to the agent game and athletes first, and now being called back to the college ranks, I think with a new perspective, being at a big school, but being in that sort of Notre Dame bubble for a while and seeing sort of NIL and transfer portal kind of kick in a high gear and dealing with it from the other side, Steve, I think gives him really kind of unique perspective. So as much as we were looking at some names that we knew, I feel like this hire, with all of the perspective that he can bring, not only will allow him to put Michigan on and keep Michigan on a lot of good prospects, but also let him know what he needs to round out his staff with. And we see he already made one hire. He's going to be making others. But what do you think of Peloquin?
Yeah, for sure. I think, when we first, knew that they were going to have to make a replacement at general manager, I don't think his name ever came to the forefront because he had gone over to the athletes first, like the agent side. But if you had stacked everything up and said, what type of person is the person you want to fill this role, this is exactly what you're looking at, is somebody with, like you said, experience on both those sides, right? And to have an experience now, a couple of years in that agent NIL side of things, makes such a huge difference. I mean, I don't know if it was Brice, the article you just wrote about the Oregon commit, where it was like they've been in contact with his, like they're talking to, now it's like schools have to talk to agents to set up visits and stuff, right? It's like that's all like totally, it's a whole new world. So for him to bring over that experience, and then also, I mean, I know Notre Dame, big Michigan rival, but they did very, very well under him. He ran a really well-oiled machine on the recruiting side of things. Like a long time guy there. So yeah, I think it checks off a lot of the boxes you're looking for as far as Michigan's concerned in today's college football. And yeah, I think now the question is filling out that staff. They make the Skylar Phan hire. I assume NFL type person, probably maybe looking to find somebody with some NFL type experiences. I think would be something that they'll probably be looking for. But yeah, it's really it's going to be a complete overhaul, essentially, is what it really is looking like it's going to be. So yeah, no, I mean, A+ hire. It really is. Like I said, if he had still been in the college game, I think he'd have got one of those guys looked at as like one of the top, absolute tip top general manager, like leader types in that type of role.
I don't know, Brice, when we were kind of laying out what to look for with that role, one of the things I know we talked about a lot is having someone heavy on the relationship side, really with the agents and the scouts across the country. I think he brings a lot of experience and is going to have some of those, but I also think that that's one of the things that he can do with rounding out his staff. Even if he's been away for a minute, he still has really good relationships, but there are some pieces that he can add to the puzzle that can really fill out that aspect of things that we've been talking about. Hey, who knows the SMSB crew? Who knows all the different, major trainer, who all knows all the different 7-on-7 programs, South Florida Express, all over. Who knows those guys? He can get somebody to come in and fill in whatever gaps he might have.
Yeah, I think too, you basically get the best of both worlds with him, right? He helps with the agency side of it and kind of the transfer portal, but on top of that, and recruiting and that aspect as well, making those bonds and stuff. So as much as I'm excited about the hire, I think the biggest thing for me was, are they going to bring in a guy with a bunch of experience? And he definitely checks those boxes with flying colors. I mean, 20 plus years, I want to say, at Notre Dame. And I think something too, Sam, that we talked about last podcast with Alan was he was I don't quote me on this, I want to say he was the originator of the Irish invasion camp. Maybe the pot of gold day they do at Notre Dame, which it's innovative stuff. It's out of the box stuff. And I think it's stuff that definitely caught the attention of recruits, players, and potential recruits, and even us.
Yeah,
guys that don't even cover Notre Dame. I remember we would talk about it, off air. It's just like, man, like that's different. That's something that's eye catching, and it turns your head, and it's like, okay, now we're talking about Notre Dame, and I think he brings that element to Michigan now.
Yeah, they really leaned into that in a way that you would have hoped the barbecue at the Big House was going to be that kind of thing that everyone talked about. That they really, other teams started to do barbecues, but Michigan was the first, and it really seemed like it was going to be a major theme day. Dave brings that to the fold, but I think as he's come in and he's learning the lay of the land about what he has inherited and what the outlook will be for this new staff, I think he's getting a feel for what pieces, what people would fit good, and then kind of figuring out what different roles that they can fill. So as opposed to going out and saying, hey, I'm going to hire a DPP, I think, as a matter of fact, I know he's talking to different candidates, kind of gauging, hey, what's your skill set? What's your skill set? Because I like this about you. I like the fact that, hey, you might know, you might be connected with Michigan alumni. I like the fact that, you might have some connections across the Midwest. But what are some of the other things that you do? And then based on that, we can create a position. We can call it whatever we're going to call it because of all the traits that you bring to the table. That's what I think. That's how he's going about it, which I think is a great way. Don't pigeonhole yourself and grab people with big school experience. Like Dave has big time experience on this level, and the assist that's going to be to this staff. I know football is football, That's something that Coach Witt has said. But at this level, you know, I mean, it's a different animal when it comes to the competitive fire that is always there in everything you do on the field, when you make hires, when you recruit, and having someone on the recruiting and personnel side that's familiar with that cauldron, that fire pit, I think is going to be huge. And Dave is going out and talking to people who have similar experience. And so that brings us to Skylar Phan, who he just hired away from USC. And you talk about how they were doing visits at Notre Dame. Brice, man, if you watched how they did visits at USC, I mean, it was like guys were rolling. They literally were rolling up to the red carpet.
They did. They literally.
I mean, it was a spectacle when you showed up to a USC visit. So I imagine that we'll be seeing some of that kind of stuff here with Skylar on staff as the director of director of on-campus recruiting. So unofficial and official visits. I don't know if that's exactly the title that they gave her, but that's essentially the role that she'll be serving. Basically what Kaylee was doing when she was here.
Yeah, I think that's a spot that gets overlooked a lot of times because of you just think these guys go up on visits and they come in for the game and they head out. And there's a lot of aspects logistically and financially you kind of have to work around. And so I think for her, she has big time experience at big time programs. She's worked at Texas. She's worked at USC. And mind you, at USC, they just signed the #1 recruiting class last cycle. So she has a pretty good idea of how to handle just going about everything like that. And I just think, again, when we talked about Notre Dame with the Irish invasion, a pot of gold, those visits alone at USC was like you felt like you're at Hollywood. Like she gave you that LA magic to it. And I think for Michigan, she can put another spin on it, but it's just something about it and what she does and makes these so innovative, so original, and so creative is going to make Michigan separate compared to what you would see in the past. So I think it's a great hire. I think it's one building block though. Michigan has fans, I should say. I understand he's building a complete staff, right? It's not just gonna be her. There's gonna be several more people added to the mix. And I just think this is a component that maybe we didn't see in the past, right? And like I said, she's gonna add a new twist to it. I think that should help, right? And I think this is a very solid hire. And mind you, I had several, this is crazy, but agents now have reached out to me that work with top high school prospects. And they told me every time they went up on a visit to USC, A+ communication, A+ just people skills, A+ everything she brought. And they flat out said, true professional at the end of the day. So great hire, solid, big time addition, in my opinion. I think this is a step in the right direction of where you want to see this personnel staff going.
No doubt about it. And, they I can't remember which. It sounds like they're going to take a minute, take a beat for the to kind of get their bearings and then start having visitors on campus, which is not a bad idea. What do you want a visit to look like? How do coaches like for their visits to go? Figure all that out. And then it sounds like they're going to start having them in around the time spring practice starts, that you guys is beat on it too.
Yeah, right. Couple guys coming up in the next week or so, but we can already kind of tell that they have kind of backlogged to an extent, right? You don't want to fully but like they've backlogged things a little bit. I think the primary reason for that is to buy yourself a little bit more time to get all your ducks in a row, get everybody on the same page, and basically have your full arsenal ready for when you're like really hosting your larger groups and maybe some of your really top guys that you really, really want, right? So, I think what's going to be interesting and probably great just feels like things are going to be more on the same page across the board going forward, right? I try to say this without, like, I don't try to sound too, but like organized chaos is kind of how it's felt at Michigan for a long time, you know, especially and really within the recruiting department, that area, and even on the coaching side of things. Obviously, you know, it's like Michigan's been able to, you know, obviously they've accomplished some major things on the field the last 5 years, et cetera, et cetera. But you know, it's like what's always been interesting, especially covering recruiting, is like even us talking. It's like there were so many little areas and so many little things where you're like, there's room for improvement here, and it doesn't, and you don't need to recreate the wheel necessarily to get that improvement. It was like, felt like very achievable things, you know, that you could do that really could, you know, could make things it'd make life easier for the coaches and for everybody. And so I think that's another area in bringing a guy like Peloquin on board, is like, I think it's just going to be a much more organized and streamlined process on both for the recruiting department, and then in effect makes life easier for the coaching staff too, for when they do get guys on campus. And, you know, it's like they have the ability to just sit down and start recruiting guys, not having to worry about all the other stuff, you know?
Yeah, man, I got a perfect example, and just want to shout out our viewers on Facebook and Twitter. One of them, Mike Dunn, who he said, I wish it was college football season. Mike, you better enjoy this basketball season, man. I mean, I love college football season too, but this is, I mean, Michigan basketball is at the pinnacle. It could be cutting down the nets, best team in the country, and going to have a loaded visitor list for the game this Saturday, which we'll get into later. But to your point, Steve, look, I thought they did a lot right when it came to fixing recruiting, for sure. I mean, there were some holes toward the end of Jim's era. Man, it was full speed ahead. We were about to win this title, and hey, he might not be here anyway. So they filled those gaps. But you're right, Steve. There were some like glaring instances of lack of communication. And to me, there was no bigger example of that than linebacker recruiting. I talked about it before, but you had all those highly ranked linebackers coming to campus. But those linebackers, none of those linebackers fit in the budget. Now, you know, that's the kind of thing that it just waste of time and resources when you do that. And it harms the perception of recruiting. It just makes it like, oh man, you know, A, you don't value linebackers. B, you know, you can't recruit linebackers, or, you know, what's going on there, when basically what happened was you had a linebacker coach recruiting guys without the awareness that none of these guys are going to get paid for. You can't, I mean, there has to be more connection to that. Again, they did a lot right with recruiting, but that's an example of something that I feel like is going to be better with Dave. He is an excellent communicator. Excellent communicator. I think his rapport with the coaches is going to be, I think that's going to be A1 too. He already has a relationship with Tony Alford, for instance, coming in the door. And so I think that's going to help a lot, because toward the signing day. Ooh. Ooh. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's gonna be better for OTA this time around. So with that, you know, that's not to say that the last staff did do a lot right recruiting wise, personnel wise, but you always want to see what can you do to enhance what you're doing. And Steve, I think you nailed one of those things spot on, and really speaks to one of Dave Peloquin's strengths. But let's get into some of these would-be visitors, guys, coming up here in the coming weeks. First, on the football side of things, and I know producer Lance has been at work getting highlight packages together. So let's start with Charles Davis, who's going to be making his way to Ann Arbor, Brice.
So he's going to be an official visitor. He's coming May 29th. One of my honestly favorite prospects in this class, 6'5", 210 pounds, an athletic jumbo wideout. I wouldn't even consider him a tight end. He's got recently bumped up to 4 stars by 24/7 Sports. He was want to say he was a 4-star in the composite, but he now officially has won on 24/7 and in the composite. Got a lot of big-time offers, Sam. This is going to be a shocker to a lot of people, but Oregon seems to be the team to beat right now in this recruitment. School that he's really liked for quite some time. Several other West Coast schools are in the mix, but Michigan is making a strong push. He's had a relationship with Micah Simons and that previous coaching staff out there in Utah for quite some time. And I think the biggest thing is he wants to see, shocker again, what the offense looks like, right? They've said they're going to throw the ball. They said they're going to spread out. They want to get playmakers involved on the outside. He is exactly what he would want to see. For me personally, and I'm not saying he is him, but he reminds me a lot of like Megatron in terms of the frame, the ball skills, how he can go up and just honestly like out physical smaller DBs. And I just think for him, you know, you put him on the outside, mismatch all day long. I mean, 6'5", he's got an insane vertical. He's a former basketball player. There's a lot about his game I really like. And so I think for Michigan, they see him as a guy that maybe like a JJ Buchanan, right? Where he was a tight end, wide out.
I
and
like
you
that.
find a role for him, right? You find a role for him. Maybe not
I like that
Megatron.
together, Brice.
Right. It just came to mind. I'm not saying he's Megatron. I know people in the comments are like, Brice is an idiot. But that's kind of the role I kind of see him envisioning him in Michigan's offense if he were to come here. So big time player. I really love him. One of the West Coast's top overall players on the offense side of the ball. And like I said, Oregon seems to be the team to be right now, though.
Yeah, isn't he supposed to be visiting Ohio State like soon? Isn't he? I was like, man, will they be able to get him around?
He's going to take a bunch of spring visits, and then he's also going to take his officials, and he's got several of his officials set up. Michigan's right now sandwiched in the middle, so that kind of always makes me a little leery, you know, because I mean, personally, I feel like you'd want to be towards the end of the officials, but you got to take them when you can get them. That's how I look at this.
It's true, Steve. Yeah, the JJ Buchanan comparison. I like that one. How about you?
Yes, no. I don't know if Georgia Tech has offered him or not. I was like, if they haven't, maybe they should get him on the horn and pitch the Megatron thing to him. But Kyle Pitts was another guy. I know a couple of guys on our board mentioned Kyle Pitts was a good comparison for him. I can see that as well. But yeah, this dude, I would say before we got on, I think we have him ranked, 356? This is the lowest he'll be ranked still. I think this guy keeps moving up. He's just got that stuff you can't teach, right? I mean, the size, the ability to high point, for a guy his size also. And then obviously this is a guy you're going to be able to put 25, 30 pounds on, no problem, without any loss of like athletic ability, I would feel like. So, I go back, like the tight end wide receiver stuff. To me, it'll be fascinating because there's a real fine line, I feel like, in those types of things. I wonder if a lot of schools will do what I always called the Mark Andrews deal, is where they'll just lie to him the whole process and tell him he'll play wide receiver and then line him up at tight end when they eventually move him to. I mean, that's basically how Mark Andrews ended up at Oklahoma back in the day, is they were the only ones telling him he'd play wide receiver, and then he shows up to his first spring camp as a tight end, right? So that'll be interesting, but could be a possibility where he could be a guy that could be utilized in a few different ways. But yeah, as far as like offensive like weapon types in this cycle, he's definitely among the most intriguing, if not the most intriguing guy. I mean, and that's why you got Oregon, SC, all the big dogs across the country are onto him, and Michigan, the new staff sort of picked up where I feel like he was actually on the verge of becoming a top target under the last staff. I think Steve Kasula was really starting to pick up the recruitment with him, and Freddie Whittingham and Micah Simon have kind of picked it up from there. And, now he's one of Michigan's top overall targets on the offensive side for sure.
Yeah, plucking him away from the West Coast. This is where we might get the first instance of, Skylar Phan, having an impact. USC was very high on his list. That could be, that familiar face could also be something that helps as he comes to campus. It's just, whenever you're talking about a guy like this, how many times can you get him on campus? It tends to be one of my measures of likelihood. It's great that they have the official lined up, but I know he's going to be. I got to find out the date for that Ohio State visit, because I'd be trying to siphon off of that. Like, hey, I know you're going to be over there. Why don't you slide up here for a few hours first, just to try to make it, try to get him as familiar with not just the staff, but the staff in this new environment as possible. So, but big time guy, and you got to be climbing that hill that you got to climb with receivers right now that we've been talking about for a while. Proof being in the pudding, showing them what you do. This is one instance, Brice, where him visiting after spring ball actually kind of helps, because at least he'll be able to look at spring ball and say, hey, this is what they showed in spring ball. And then it boils down to the timeline for a decision. Will he actually wait to see it manifest on the field in the fall? Remains to be seen. But at least, if you visit early in spring ball, do you really get a feel for what they're going to do? You can get a better feel if you wait until afterwards. So it's not altogether bad as far as that's concerned. We'll see. But let's jump on to the next highlight package for producer Lance. And next up on the docket, Steve, is Ethan Hauser.
Yeah, so Ethan Hauser, one of two. So the other, interesting. I remember when the Kyle Whittingham hire was first made, we were curious to see Georgia, Florida, Alabama, right? Like those states, like where, because there weren't any real like direct connections to those areas under the new staff. But here we are, and Michigan is hosting Ethan Hauser, and then we'll talk about Watson here in a little bit too. Buford's two starting linebackers, right? Buford, Georgia, one of the biggest powerhouse high school programs in the country, not just in the Southeastern Conference footprint. But what did we get him at, Brice? 6'3", 200. He was listed at 6'2", 185. Profile wasn't updated. We got it into 6'3". We got it up to 6'3", 200. That's where he's listed. I love this guy's game. I think he's, like, as you can see right here, I mean, he's basically playing in the slot, and a guy I think who did play wide receiver also for Buford, or has played wide receiver for them also. But yeah, I mean, looks like a top target, right? I mean, they're what I've liked about like Alex Whittingham's board at linebacker. It's funny, we were talking about linebacker earlier. I don't know if there's an offer he's made there where I'm not like, okay, this guy looks pretty good. Like, there, you know what I mean? I'm not saying like, normally that's obviously the case at Michigan, but these are guys, Hauser being one of them, where you're just like, oh, this guy could definitely play at Michigan, right? So, and honestly, the other thing, Brice probably would have another comment on this one. Kind of feel like Michigan can win this one too. Feels like his interest in Michigan is pretty high early on. I did see he's a great student in the classroom. Just off the cuff, feels like a Michigan type kid, and a guy I feel like is going to vibe really well with this new staff, who I think is going to really take a little bit more of a business-like approach, I think, in a lot of ways with some of these. They want guys that want to play at Michigan, and I think that they're going to find a connection here with Hauser.
Brice, Ethan Hauser.
Yeah, I'm with Steve on it. He is very high in academics. He's got two officials set up, one being Vanderbilt. So obviously academics is big for him. And I think when you're looking at his officials right there, he's got the two lined up, but Michigan is coming June 19th through the 21st, which is noteworthy because that will be Victor's weekend, which is their biggest recruiting weekend of the summer. And on top of that, he's going to be up on campus for a spring visit. So, Sam, you mentioned guys making multiple trips. Mm-hmm. He's going to be one of them making multiple trips. I think April 9th through the 11th. So he's going to take a multi-day spring visit and then a 3-day official visit at the end of the summer in June. So I personally feel Michigan leads for this one. Again, plucking a guy like this away from a school in Buford that churns out D1 talent year in, year out is, for me, a win, right? Like, you don't need to question his competition level. You don't need to question what he does every day in practice. I mean, he's facing top guys in practice every day. Top coaching he's receiving down in Georgia, and high academic kid who is tall, athletic, can cover in space, and come down and tackle. Checks a lot of boxes. And we talk about trends that we've seen from quarterback recruiting. I'm kind of seeing a trend with the linebacker recruiting, looking for taller, leaner, athletic guys where you can put on 15, 20 pounds and you still know they're going to be able to, move around pretty well. So I think Alex Whittingham, to Steve's credit, has done a great job of building this board and not zoning in on one or two guys, but casting a pretty wide net of really good options, right? Like, there's quantity over quality, and I think you're seeing both, and you're not seeing him put all his eggs in one basket, whereas I think last cycle, Michigan made that strong push for Nick Abrams, but it might have been to their benefit if they kind of targeted other guys, seeing how that ship was going and where the NIL approach was. I think that was always going to be an uphill battle. I think for Michigan, you're seeing a different approach, and it's starting to work with several of these guys better.
Yeah, you know what? I guess I kind of see it like Nick was the guy that of the group that they had the most legit shot at because he connected with them personally, and they were. It looked like from an NIL perspective, they were ready to really, or they were really in the mix, and that wasn't the case for the rest of them. So to your point, would it have helped if they had pivoted to guys who were more realistic earlier in the process? I think it would have. Fortunately, they end up with a guy like Aiden Reeder, but that's hellified recruiting that you were able to find a guy that good. But that's kind of how it should have been all along. Is to your point, Brice, why are you chasing these guys? So you know what? It makes me think of another Georgia guy, not Buford, but Grayson, Anthony Davis. Like, you were never going to pay for Anthony Davis. Yeah. So, I mean, why are you even recruiting him that hard? Having that's a waste of time and resources. And this will give us, we see how Alex Whittingham has built his board. I think we're going to get a great feel for how much they prioritize the linebacker position as far as their cap is, as far as their how they slot guys is concerned as well. With the past staff, is very clear that they were going to spend on more developmental projects and maybe occasionally go for a big fish like a Nate Owusu Boateng. We'll get our first glimpse of that here with Ethan Hauser. But let's move on. Jayshon Gibson, Mr. Brice Marich.
Big time running back out of the state of Texas, 5'9", 185 pounds. I want to say he's a composite 4-star. First thing that pops out to me is this guy is not a fan of Dancing with the Stars, meaning he doesn't dance around in the backfield. Like, he is one step through the hole, explode, gone, right? And you're seeing some of his highlights here. First highlight was him literally 85 yards down the middle. And for me, his running style and even what he can do coming out of the backfield, catching the football, reminds me very much of Donovan Edwards. Just kind of his versatility of how you can use him out of like a pass catcher, but also as obviously a running threat. And so I think with Gibson, he's a great complement to what they got at Michigan now, right? I think that's where Tony Alford is looking, because he's stocked that cupboard pretty well. And you're assuming, I shouldn't say you're assuming, but if I had to make a prediction, Jordan Marshall's not going to be here next year. I think he's going to be a pro. I think he's that good. So you're looking for someone to match with Savion Hyder. And you got capable backs already in Ann Arbor, but the guys coming in this cycle are going to be crucial as well. And I think Gibson brings another layer that maybe they don't have, where it's more of a upfield, straight ahead approach, great vision, not a guy that's going to make many cuts. I mean, he's going to hit the hole and he's going to be gone. And so, again, guy plays with elite competition down in Texas. Got a lot of offers, so this is going to be one they're going to have to work for, but he's got an exceptional relationship with Tony Alford, like I mentioned, the running backs coach. And he's going to make 2 visits, Sam. He's going to be coming up, I want to say April 9th through the 11th, and he's going to make official June 10th through the 12th. So for him to already have 2 visits lined up, that's telling to me. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, he's one that, even though he's got 30 offers, and even though a lot of schools are kind of after him, every time I've talked to him, he's kind of given me the indication he's very willing to leave the state of Texas, despite Texas schools wanting him. So that's a big plus. And we'll see how they do. I think this is a guy that wants to leave personally, is open to leaving. And we always talk about sells compared to wide receiver recruiting. I think running back is, you ain't got much, you ain't gonna have to sell too much when it comes to running back recruiting in Michigan.
Yeah, a couple of things. I guess I kind of see Jordan being, I see him going the whole 4 years, but if he does so well that he jumps to the pros after next year, Brice Michigan's in the national championship game. You know, I mean, they have absolutely killed the game, and Jordan Marshall is a pro after next year. But something I want to say, Steve, going back to Ethan Hauser, look, ignore the ranking right now. And I feel this, at least the 24/7 ranking. I feel like it's going to catch up to how good he really is. People were, I'm sure they were saying, well, what do you mean we're going to see how they spend on a linebacker? He's a 3-star guy. He's not a 3-star guy. He's not a 3-star guy. The rankings just haven't come up yet. He's going to be a big ticket prospect. So that's what I say that's what I mean when I say we're going to get a feel for how much they prioritize the linebacker position from a budget standpoint. And I feel like the ranking, 24/7 ranking, has to catch up with Jayshon Gibson too, Steve.
Yeah, I see Jayshon Gibson. I think of Bo Jackson. No, I'm kidding. I was playing the Megatron. I had to do my Megatron thing. Yeah. Special guest this week, Special guest this week, Fred Jackson. But no, I'm sorry, Brice. I couldn't help it, dude.
That's a good comparison.
No, but
you could have been Ohio State Bo Jackson, not the Bo.
Yeah, that's true.
Exactly. We don't know.
But no, obviously the speed is elite though with Gibson, right? Cuts, he's a one-cut guy. You know, other thing too, just it's not on his game specifically. Man, Tony Alford, I think, is just one of the flat-out best recruiters in the country. I mean, it's just like the running back board has not changed like one iota pretty much, even with a full staff transition, right? And like so it's obvious that he is a draw, you know, and then you combine that with Michigan's inclination to run the football. And again, we know Michigan's going to want to spread it out a little bit more. They want more playmakers at the receiver spot, but Kyle Whittingham teams are known as smash mouth, run the football teams as well, right? So, you know, I don't think Michigan's going to stray too far away from their strengths, especially with what you got this year, you know, with Hyder and Marshall leading the way. But no, yeah, Gibson, interesting. Yeah, I saw Wisconsin is another school involved. You know, a few other programs are there, but with him, like you said, the other thing is having 2 visits. We talk about getting a guy back up. Having 2 visits is always big. But yeah, he is. I think what Brice said is spot on as far as him being a nice compliment to what they have on the roster right now. You know, I think he's definitely like a cut and go, see you later type guy. You know, don't get him in open space. Would be interested. I'd like to see, just not as a critical aspect, but just out of curiosity, I'd like to see the balance and the ability to break tackles. And so I'd like to watch his film a little bit more. I've only watched a little bit of it, see some of that stuff a little bit more. But yeah, he's a guy that has kind of emerged as a top target for Alford. I mean, there's a pretty solid group of top guys at running back right now, but Gibson has established himself, you know, alongside like a Noah Roberts or like a Trey Segara. I think out of South Carolina is another kid. I think they're really trying with. But Gibson is, again, this won't be the last time we talk about Jayshon Gibson, I don't think.
Yeah, man. You're right with Tony Alford. He has, since he's been around, had Michigan on some of the best running backs in the country and got the best running back in the country last year. And this shows that there's going to be no difference in how much emphasis there is on the running back position for sure. We can see that right here. Again, ignore the ranking. And that goes for the last guy who you already alluded to. I can't remember which one of you, Brice or Steve, when we were talking about Ethan Hauser. Hey, man, I think the rankings are even farther behind. Don't even have we got to get a photo of Braydon. I'm just, but it just tells you how much things are going to catch up, Steve, when you talk about another Buford linebacker.
Yeah, Braydon Watson, known as Tank, right? Tank Watson. That's probably what we'll be calling him from here on out. Yeah, I mean, not only the ranking, but like I'm pretty surprised that he doesn't have a lot more offers. I mean, Ethan Hauser's got 27 or 28. Watson's only listed with 12. I'll have to go back and double check to see if there are others. Maybe I could add him to his profile. But Oregon, USC have offered. But again, this is another one where I know, Brice, you caught up with him shortly after the offer. This seems like another winnable one for them as well. I mean, it's crazy to think Michigan could end up taking 2 linebackers or getting 2 linebackers out of Buford. That's a program Michigan has tried year in and year out. I think I go back to like Isaac Nada played at Buford.
Yeah.
Right? And how badly Michigan wanted him and how close they were to getting him. But like, it's not a program they've necessarily had a ton of success at, despite them churning out. Like, they're a school that churns out so many guys per cycle that like Georgia can't really even take all of them, or you know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of guys there every cycle that go to like Auburn or Alabama or Florida State or whatever, and so for Michigan all of a sudden to be in on really their starting linebacking core is impressive. But yeah, it's like splitting hairs, I think, between these two guys of which one is a better looking college prospect. I mean, they both look like clear Michigan level players. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, if Michigan say they could just theoretically say they land one, if that helps them with the other, right? I mean, because these guys do feel like top of the board type dudes. I mean, we talk about other guys at linebacker on the pod, like Brox Baker, to name one that specifically it feels like Michigan's in decent shape with. But these two guys are right up there. And yeah, I mean, I also am interested to see how many Michigan takes at linebacker this cycle, right? That's always a position to watch. And there's again a healthier board than what we're used to. But yeah, like I said earlier, these 3-star guys that they're offering like don't look like 3-star type prospects. And honestly, it's kind of odd to me that a kid at a high school like Buford hasn't had enough eyeballs on him for them to say like, hey, this is a 4-star prospect, right? So yeah, Tank. Some of the names this cycle too, man. Tank, Titan, Bronx. Like there's a lot of name potential in this class too, right? So so that's kind of, yeah, Diesel. Yeah, Diesel Dart. It's like there's some real name potential here. But yeah, again, Braydon Watson, Ethan Hauser, 2 elite linebackers that, yeah, Michigan really could be in the lead for. They could be in the lead for both these guys right now. I mean, it's very realistic.
Brice?
I mean, I'll throw my non-crystal ball prediction, but I would say Michigan does lead for both. And they're both going to be coming up the same weekends in April. He's coming up with Ethan, and he's coming back with Ethan for Victor's weekend. So they're making the same visits. They really both like Michigan. They're both high academic kids. They take football very serious as well. And I just feel like, and I'm not saying it is, but it gives me very much package deal vibes, right? Where you could see the two of them become a package deal where Michigan, like Steve says, we have to go very far to fill our linebacker quota. Just go to Buford High School and just get their starting linebackers, which most years, if you told a college coach that, I think they would say, where do I sign? Like, that's how good it is with talent. So I'm a huge fan of him. I think the difference with him compared to Ethan is he's a more versatile prospect. You can watch his film. He's playing tight end. He's playing wildcat. He's playing, wideout. He's playing safety. He's playing everywhere sometimes but linebacker. But he brings the physicality. He's got great ball skills. And he's a guy I think just fits what Michigan wants to do defensively. So huge fan of him. Need to get a photo, but I think he's obviously a very good player.
Yeah. So this is a great time to segue over to the basketball side of things, where Dusty May and staff have just been beastly on the court, beastly in the portal. They've done great work on the recruiting trail as well, but I just feel like things are about to ratchet up a notch, even higher on the recruiting side of things. And this recruiting weekend, this visit weekend, Brice is a shining example of that, because huge game with Michigan State for in-state bragging rights perspective, right? Michigan already is the outright Big Ten champ. They are conceding this, and they're going to have a big-time visitor list on hand for the show.
Yeah, I mean, everyone always points out that Dusty May just gets portal guys, and he's just a portal merchant, and he just raids the portal and finds guys. But you look at the class they're bringing in for this cycle, and then what they're trying to build in 2027, that seems far from the story. And so you look at the visitor list for this upcoming game. Joseph Hartman, he's a signee, 4-star shooting guard from Gainesville. His dad is actually assistant coach at the University of Florida men's basketball team, and he had many offers. But he just like Dusty May. He had a previous relationship with the coaching staff down there when they're at FAU. And I think you've heard that quite a bit, especially because those guys are just people pleasers, and they just connect with guys. And huge fan of his game. I think we talk about rankings, and again, I'm not a basketball guy per se when it comes to rankings, but he kind of seems like he's on the lower end. He's closer to top 100. I think he's more of a top 60 player, top 50 player. I think when you look at what Michigan does with their valuations, they're really good. He actually played point guard for his high school team this past year. So he's got extremely good ball handling skills, averaged over 15 points a game. Extremely, extremely good prospect. But you look at some of the other guys, especially, and this is where the class they're really trying to hit on, the 2027s.
Mm-hmm.
King Gibson, 5-star combo guard. Got about every offer you want.
Yes, he does.
Number 7 nationally on 24/7 Sports. 6'4", 185 pounds from Spire Academy in Ohio. This is a guy that's going to be a one and done, flat out.
Yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see. He a kid originally from North Carolina. I mean, you heard about him all circuit, the spring and summer cycle. This is one of the high risers as far as the rankings were concerned, because the dude was just lighting it up. He was always a guy who was seen as a facilitator, was going to get after it on both ends, and was a playmaker, but was never seen as much of a shooter. And then all of a sudden, he started knocking down threes at a really good clip, and has shown some growth in his game. And it's really what skyrocketed him all the way to the top of the combo guard rankings. And so, yeah, if you're him and you look at Michigan and the way they allow their guys to play, but the way they compete on both ends, and their appreciation for doing everything. You see Jax. Jax is not one of the top scorers in the Big Ten, but he has a great stat line across the board and is probably the player of the year. That kind of thing would appeal, even though it's a different position, would appeal to a guy like this. And so I think a huge one to get on campus at this point, and the way they go about things, I think going to be really, really appealing to him. So we'll see what kind of traction they gain. But you're bringing them on campus for the right atmosphere too, because I got to tell you guys, I think it's going to be electric in there, based on how well Michigan has done and based on what I saw when Alejandro and I were down in DC for the Duke game and all those Michigan games that traveled for the contest. Oh, I mean, these dudes are going to witness an insane atmosphere at Crisler, and you don't say that very often.
No, so the championship's already wrapped up. You just got to hope that Michigan stays healthy, whether by their doing or other doings. So, right, so that'll be big after the LJ Kaysen thing. I was just looking, so I see King Gibson goes to the Spire Academy in Ohio, and I saw that their head coach is Kevin Boyle. I would be interested to ask him, the head coach, who he would compare Gibson to, because listen to this list of dudes that this guy has coached in high school: Cade Cunningham, Kyrie Irving, D'Angelo Russell, RJ Barrett, Joel Embiid, Jalen Duren, Al Harrington, just Caleb Houston went to Michigan. This guy has coached some of there's 3 number 1 draft picks that he's coached, NBA draft picks that he's coached in high school. So I would be fascinated to hear what he thinks about Gibson. But yeah, I mean, we're starting to see, you talk about the portal. I mean, and I think the portal is more important in basketball than it even is at the football level, right? I mean, it's just there's less spots, there's more guys shifting, rotating, but the high school recruiting is picked up. You're starting to see the tip top guys in the country are looking at Michigan as stronger and stronger. Feels like by the week, by the month, under Dusty May. So, Dusty's building a monster here. I mean, it really feels like it, right? I mean, because there's still a lot of value in trying to get these top high school guys. It's not all portal, and so yeah, right. So Gibson could be probably a one and done, or easily could be a one and done type prospect, but it's just insane the amount of talent that is coming through right now and is on its way, and so it's you look at a guy like this, you're like, actually, this guy could end up at Michigan. Yeah. Used to be there were guys and Michigan would get close, but now it's I guess what I'm trying to say is Michigan, I feel is cool right now. They're in, right? They're not just playing good basketball, but they're playing a style and they have a swagger about them, I think, that has become attractive to some of these prospects and these transfer guys. So, but yeah, I'm excited to turn on some King Gibson here in a little bit, because I already, number 7 in the country. So,
yeah. All right. So Brice, next on the list of visitors, let's go with Devin Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite guys in the cycle. He's a floor general, 6'3", 100. I want to say he's closer to 75 pounds. Got many offers. And here's the thing about him. He's been on Michigan's radar for years. He took a visit unofficial to Michigan, I want to say a couple years ago I forgot the football game, but one of the early football games, non-conference ones. And so this has been a guy that Michigan's been recruiting from quite some time. He told me, I think the biggest thing for him, and he told me this about the coaching staff, is he said, with Michigan, they let you play through your mistakes. He loves the offense, and he loves how the ball moves side to side and kind of what they can do, and so this is assistant coach Miskadim, and he's been really the highlighter in this recruitment, done a great job. And I just think when you watch him, you're like, okay, this guy can space the floor, but he can facilitate, right? And so I think that's the thing Michigan's looking for their next point guard, because the biggest question when it comes to 27 basketball recruiting is who's going to be the point guard in this class for them. You got Caden Daughtry, you got Cleveland, and you got the next guy coming up here, I think, is even a guy that's underranked as well. And I think from those 3, and maybe you could sprinkle in, who knows if more guys emerge, because like Steve said, Michigan is kind of the hot team on the trail and kind of the sexy name, and more guys are now approaching Michigan. Whereas I feel like in the past, Michigan had to I don't say beg, but I think they had to work a little harder, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Of all the guys that are coming, there's a lot of guys to be excited about. I would say I'm most excited about Devin Cleveland, not because he's the best player, but because I think he's the guy they're in the best position with. Been to campus before, raves about the program and how guys. I know you talked to him about his visit before, Brice, and he was like, "Man, I just love the way they let their guards play. I love what they've done with both guys, that he knows of, and Elliot Cadeau, Trey McKinney. He plays for La Lumiere, but he's a Chicago guy, which explains in part why Akeem is so tight with him early. And he just, when you listen to him talk about what he likes about Michigan compared to what he likes about the other schools, it just sounds different. Loves the coaching staff and the way they connect, loves their style of play. Talks very specifically. Elliot, they didn't, they called him a guy who turned the ball over a lot, couldn't shoot threes, and he goes to Michigan and look at what Coach May, he's allowed him to shoot and get better as a shooter and play through mistakes. It just, like, I think his appreciation for Michigan is on a different level. You've had a multiple time visitor. He obviously is going to take an official. Like, they are in great shape with Devin Cleveland. So, and they say he's gotten bigger too. So I want to see that because, the database says he's 165. I don't think that that's accurate. I want to see how big Devin Cleveland is in person coming up on Sunday. So we'll see how that goes. But another Illinois guy, not at La Lumiere, which is in Indiana, but that's Devin Cleveland transferring out of Kenwood Academy. You still have an Illinois guy in Illinois in Jaxson Davis. So what about him, Brice?
Just sparky fire competitor. Little more, not as as tall as the other guys we had mentioned, but I mean, flat out bucket. He can get a shot from any spot on the court. He can create for himself. He can create for others. Having a huge, huge junior year, dominating in Illinois. And I know from talking to others, this is going to be a big time, like Big Ten recruitment. Yeah. I was in the mix heavy. Illinois, obviously, he's in the mix heavy. Purdue's looking at him pretty hard. So there's a lot of competition, but I know he has a huge or a strong interest towards Michigan. He's been in communication with that staff for quite some time now. And like we have talked about, he likes the very up and down approach with the offense. And I think that's one thing that Dusty May said in his intro presser is like, if there's one thing for sure, we're going to be an entertaining team and we're going to score the ball. And I think for him, that fits Davis to a T. So we'll see where Michigan stands coming out of this trip. But he is the one where I would say maybe not ranked as high as the others, but his game is the game I kind of like the most. But maybe that's because he reminds me almost like LJ Kaysen. Like you put him in the game, instant offense. So that's why I really like him.
Yeah, he's I think you nailed it when you say you think this would be a Midwest recruitment in a state where it seems like all of their top prospects are fleeing. He decided to stay in Illinois, to stay around his family, and be close to his support system. So feel like his recruitment is gonna mimic that. And that clearly gives Illinois some footing. You mentioned the other schools very much in the mix, but to me, this is very much about convincing him you don't have to go far, but getting a little away from home it can be really appealing too. You got to imagine they'll have Merez all over him when he comes, former Mr. Basketball down there, talking to another Mr. Basketball who was at Illinois and said, let me go see if there are greener pastures, and the pastures are way greener for Rez, right? So I know it's a different position, but a guy who walked a similar path and that he was a big-time Illinois guy, he actually went to Illinois and found something that suits him better at the University of Michigan. So I
just want to point out, too, I don't know for a fact on this, but I think he also played for Mean Streets. on the AU team.
Yeah.
Which if he did, I don't know if you know who the head coach is over there, Sam.
What, Ty Street? Yeah.
Ty Street. So
Yeah.
there's another little
Ty has
connection.
never been a push.
And I get he doesn't push. I get that. And I get that. But it doesn't hurt, right?
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, I would just say, Trey McKinney. Trey McKinney's a mean streets guy. So, that gives you some connection there too. So yeah, you got some things that you can work with, which leads us to the last one, Steve and Brice. The name should excite you. Now, I mean, I think the kid is an up and comer, and we got to be careful not to compare him to Megatron. But you're more likely to compare this kid to a big time pro, right? You're talking about Kager Knueppel out of Wisconsin. Yes, he is related to Knueppel, the sharpshooting Charlotte Hornet forward who has been lighting it up. He is the legit Rookie of the Year candidate in a year where, former teammate Cooper Flagg you thought was going to run away with it, right? Not so fast, my friend, Steve, because Knueppel is lighting it up in the NBA. And here his younger brother is, I think their team is number 1 in the state of Wisconsin. He's playing with his two younger brothers and his cousin. It's like it's a family affair. And if the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, then all those guys can ball, which will bode well for Kager Knueppel.
Yeah, so I think we were talking. So is this a if Duke offers it's over type thing though? Do you guys think, or
no? I don't know.
Is that going to probably end up being maybe the primary question of this recruitment, right? Just because obviously you've seen what Khan, who actually I believe now is the odds-on favorite to win Rookie of the Year. I believe he is now number 1, like the betting favorite to win NBA Rookie of the Year. Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about. Obviously, you guys are more on the basketball side of things, so I don't want to go too far. But I assume Kager can shoot the ball. I'm assuming it runs in the blood there. And I but again, I look at a recruitment like this and think it's pretty much it's up to John Shire how this recruitment might go, right? So, but worth pursuing if you're Michigan. I mean, I think if there's one little minor flaw with this year's team, and I think they're missing another sharpshooter on the outside. You can never have enough shooters. I think that's kind of what tanked them in the tournament last year. Obviously this year's team totally different, but you can never have enough shooters. Probably the right well to kind of dig into here and see what you can get out of it.
Yeah, you'll be in a pipeline. If you get one of them, you're in there like Duke is, because there are 2 more coming. So Kager Knueppel, Brice, big name. Ranking is the other services like him better early on, but this is one whose game is emerging, and Michigan getting him on campus this weekend.
Yeah, I think for him, he's more of a late bloomer, which is kind of surprising, knowing his last name. He kind of grew recently in the past couple of years to where now he's kind of spurted to 6'9" compared to his brother, who I think Khan's only, 6'4". Like, I don't think he's, the tallest guy. But he plays, a different version compared to, obviously, his brother, more like a stretch 4, stretch big. I know Wisconsin has been pitching the Nolan Winters kind of role and a vision for him. And I know Wisconsin seems right now to be, I don't want to say the early favorite, but one of the main contenders along with Purdue. So he reminds me actually a lot of the role of what Quinn Costello, Michigan, has. A guy like him coming in, 6'10", stretch guy, can put the ball on the floor. Maybe not as dynamic as Quinn, but he's, like Steve said, sharpshooter. Can be physical at times. He needs to get a little bigger, but that will happen in the strength conditioning weight room program. So big fan of him, and like Sam, you said, he's got great bloodlines.
Yeah,
great genes, and he knows how to play the game the right way as well.
Yeah, he's bigger than Khan. He's not that much bigger. Knueppel You had the Knueppels hating you, Brice. He's 6'6", 215, man. like why you trying to make me shorter? You compare one guy to Megatron, blowing him up, and now you downgrade me.
I know. I don't want to make the rookie of the year. Feel he's gonna clip our podcast. I get it.
Hey, you'd be surprised how many families watch these podcasts, man. They do. Those the recruits, the families of the recruits definitely watch. So, but a loaded visit weekend, and Brice, it sounds like it could get even bigger. Like there could be even more basketball prospects that wind up on the list.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, they're still working on a couple more 2027s. Like I said, there's been a lot of interest, obviously, to come to this game, Sam, because as much as, Michigan wants to say, and they did win the trophy, there's still a lot of bragging rights involved in this game. And like you said, the atmosphere is going to be the biggest, the last home game of the regular season. And why wouldn't you want to bring all your top guys in for any other game than this? So, yeah, it makes sense.
So I just got to close just reminding folks, this is the best crew in the land. Brice and Steve, like my dudes, they hold it down. Alejandro and Zach, big time producer Lance in the fold. Like this team, man, the TMI team, the TMI family, the best around. We thank all of you for your support, but I just appreciate the guys, the family that we've built is just outstanding. So you can find us over on the MichiganInsider.com. Be sure to check us out over there. A loaded weekend, and we're about to open the studio back up. As recruits are coming to campus, we are about to start kicking things into high gear. And this new staff, they are clearly going to be loading up on the big time prospects coming into Ann Arbor. And so we'll be there with you every step of the way. Be sure to follow us over on the MichiganInsider.com. So that's going to do it for another great episode. Be sure to tune in next week for the next edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insight.